Monkey Man is a new action thriller starring Dev Patel, also directed by Dev Patel in his directorial debut. In this movie, Dev Patel lives in this Indian village that's been overrun by crime, by sort of corrupted politicians, corrupted government. On the day that this government took over his village's land and basically everything in it, that's also the night that one of these corrupted assholes killed his mother. And now for years and years, Dev Patel has been plotting his revenge. He's been plotting to get back at these people. He's plotting to just bring them down. I don't want to say this is a movie that came out of nowhere, because I will say going into this year, I had no idea this movie was being made, that this movie was happening. And then I feel like not long after I made my anticipation list for the year, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like not long after that, I saw the trailer for Monkey Man, and I was just absolutely blown away. It looked completely awesome. It looked completely badass. It looked like a new version of John Wick. It looked like Dev Patel's version of John Wick. If I saw that trailer before I made my anticipation list, this easily would have been one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Without question. I was excited for some sick action. I was excited for a great revenge tale. And I was excited to see what Dev Patel would do in his directorial debut. I've always been a fan of Dev Patel. He's been a great actor. Typically, he's a part of some really good projects, some really good movies. I was excited to see him in another one. And I'll say, as far as the directorial debut goes, I think he does very well for himself here. First of all, getting into Dev Patel's character in this movie, I don't think his character is ever named. I think he's just referred to as Kid the whole time. Maybe not the whole time. I think he uses like different aliases, but it's kind of like, you know, the whole Bride from Kill Bill kind of deal. You never really learned her name until the very end. He just went by these different aliases, similar to how she did. But I liked his character a lot. I mean, he had a lot of that brokenness, kind of emotionless to himself, which some people might say, like, you know, his character didn't have personality, but I didn't need him to. I'm the guy, when he was a little kid, he lost his mother, he lost his village, he lost everything that he basically held dear to himself because of these fucking assholes. I mean, if I were in his shoes, I'd grow up and be a little bit of a cynic myself. Like, his goal in life is purely to get revenge on these guys, and that's what he's driving himself to do. And that's what I do like seeing with him. It's seeing the methodical approach that he's taken to try to get close to them and how he's going to take them out. You know, the way he trains himself. I mean, he's basically doing these underground fight clubs that are being, you know, held by Charlotte Copley, and, you know, he's basically getting his ass kicked every time, but he's learning how to fight as it goes on. He knows the places that he has to visit in order to find these guys. He knows where he has to infiltrate. He knows where he has to start working. Like, he's not just a guy who's going on this revenge quest and is just innately good at everything or anything like that. You know, he's a flawed guy. He's a flawed human. But you see that he does know exactly what it's going to take for him to get what he's after. Get into some flaws I think some people would have with this movie, and I will admit I wasn't overly fond of this either. I do think the trailer marketed it incorrectly. Like, you watch a trailer, you think it's gonna be a revenge, action-packed, just thrill ride of a movie. It's not really like that. In fact, the trailer probably made it out like it was going to be like a John Wick kind of movie. I would argue, I think it's more like The Northman. You have this lead character, when he was a kid, he had everything taken from him, he vowed revenge, and he grew up basically turning himself into this machine of sorts, this warrior if you want to call it that. But you know, it's not just enough to go out and start killing bad guys and just fighting all these people. There's a method to the madness. There's a way you have to properly go about this in order to exact the vengeance you desire. It very much had a Northman vibe to it, and the thing that I would also compare them in that sense is both kind of feel like slow burns a little bit. There's not a lot of constant action. There's not a lot of constant throwing down. We're not getting to know a whole lot of characters here. You're seeing this guy go on this journey. What The Northman had going for it a little bit more, though, is its mythology, its scenery, its filmmaking, had some more twists and turns they didn't really expect coming. Monkey Man is a little more cut and dry in its execution of the storytelling, but at the same time, it does make things feel a little bit slow. When he's getting these different jobs, when he's acquiring money, when he's looking for different things here and there that could help him along, it does kind of have you sitting there like, okay, when are we going to get to him actually taking people out? Because the other problem that Monkey Man kind of has going for it is Dev Patel's character is really the only character you really care about. There are a couple other characters in the movie that I think they were trying to get us on board with a little bit more, but I didn't feel they did as much for the movie as I think it was intending to. There is one point he kind of comes across this village of people, these village of fighters, warriors, spiritual people, if that. They definitely put a lot more focus on them, and I will say, of characters that got some kind of story arc, some kind of development, they definitely got the most. But that being said, I'm not really going to walk out of this movie being like, oh, remember those group of people? Yeah, they were awesome. No, they were just kind of there for the sake of the story, and that's really all it was. But now getting into the action of this movie, I will say, the action of this movie, it is a little bit few and far between, but when the action goes down, it's great. I mean, you just feel the intensity in the action scenes. You feel broken bones, glass being shattered over people's heads, all-out gunfire going on. Dev Patel is just taking guys out one by one, and again, the progression you see him get as a fighter as the movie goes along, you see him really be able to hold his own a lot more. Like, there's a clear, sharp contrast between in the beginning when he's basically trying to become a fighter towards the end where he's kind of an established assassin at that point. I also want to give Dev Patel a lot of respect. I heard that he did his own stunts in this movie and he suffered a lot of injuries during a lot of the action scenes that, he broke bones, he cut himself up. I mean, he kind of put himself through a little bit through war, and I respect that. Like, to my knowledge, he didn't want to use stunt doubles, he didn't want to use stand-ins. Like, he wanted to go in there, and he wanted to be the action star, and I think that's awesome. I will say, though, where I would have a complaint, this being a directorial debut and everything like that, is a lot of the action in this movie is very shaky cam. And as I said before, I'm not a fan of shaky cam in action movies. It's a little too jarring, takes me out of it a little bit. I need my camera work really focused up, really locked in on the action sequences. And I'm not going to say that it's there the whole time, but it's there often. Again, you can chalk that up to being the first time someone's directed an action movie, if that. So, you understand, there's some growing pains there's some learning experiences, but can't deny that it is there. But all in all, I will say, Monkey Man, I had a good time with this movie. Dev Patel is great in this lead role. He plays the kind of character that you believe has been through some absolute hell and wants vengeance for going through that. There aren't a whole lot of other characters that stand out. You don't really grow an attachment towards the others. You don't really feel a hatred as much for the villains as you'd maybe want to. The action when it goes down is insane. The fight scenes when they go down are intense and brutal, especially when he's in the ring with some of these other big fighters. There's one in particular was pretty awesome. There's definitely a little too much shaky cam during the action sequences. It definitely feels a little too slow at times. I will say, there are moments where the color scheme, the lighting, the shots, there are moments in this movie where it looks gorgeous. It was maybe marketed as John Wick. It's maybe a lot more like The Northman. It's definitely nowhere near as good as either of those movies. But in the end, this was a very, very solid directorial debut for Dev Patel. I had a really good time with it. And I'm excited to see what he does next. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. And as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.